This is the Grade 12 IT Prac exam or paper 1 from November 2022, and we are going through the second question in this video, which is the SQL and the database part of the exam paper, and this is to help you prepare for your upcoming exam. So let's get into question 2. So here we are at question 2, and we are dealing with a collector can recycling initiative, and they've got a database that contains information about can collections from 2020 to 2022, and there are two tables. There's a clients table and a TBL can collection table. So let's just read the details quickly so we understand what the data looks like. So if we come over here, you can see the design of the GUI, and there we can see the details of the table. So there's a client table with client ID, client name, surname, address, and city. And there is a collection ID, collection date, the number of cans, if they were paid. And that client ID, I'm assuming, is linked to that client ID. So that's the relationship between the two. They'll probably mention that in the details here. So they talk about the restore button if we want to make any changes, and the two variables are declared as public variables, so we're going to be using those variables in our database. And so there they give some more details. Those are the details of the database. I've actually got them over here so we can refer back to them. So that is obviously going to be the link between the two. So we can see there's a link between those two values. And let's go straight into 2.1.1, which is the SQL part of this question paper. There are 5 SQL statements that we're going to be using, and we must only use SQL statements to solve these problems. So question 2.1.1, display all the details, that's important, of the client. So that's the table that we're going to refer to, who live in Bloemfontein, from the client's table, and it must be sorted according to the surname. And they give me what the data should look like. So let's look at the data. We're looking for where the city is Bloemfontein, and we want all the data, and we want it sorted by the surname. So the surname must be in alphabetical order. So let's go straight to the program over here. Here's the SQL part. We've got the two tabs. I'm on the SQL tab. That's the button we're looking at, and all we have to do is write our SQL statement in there. That's what we have to do. So let's start off with, we want all the fields. So we're going to have select, and to get all the fields, instead of mentioning all of them, I can say just select star. Then from which table are we referring to? So if you remember correctly, the table that they mentioned was TBL clients. So let's go TBL clients, and then our criteria is where the city field is equal to the text Bloemfontein. So our criteria is where the city field is equal to the text Bloemfontein. Now, if you've got criteria, so the Bloemfontein, let's see if I spelled it correctly. Make sure that you spelled exactly correctly. Bloemfontein, I think I spelled it. And remember, when you've got criteria, you're referring to these fields. If it's numbers and that, you can leave it like it is. If it's text, you must put double quotes around the text. So we're going to put double quotes around it. If it was date, you would put hashes around it. Booleans and numbers and that you can leave as is. So that's my criteria. And then we want it sorted, which means we want order by. And order by is we want it sorted by the client surname. Now, they don't mention if it's ascending or descending order. There you can see it's in from the H to V. So this is in ascending order. If they don't mention it, you can assume ascending order. So if we go to our code here, we're going to order by client surname. So make sure you get the field name correctly. Client surname in ascending order. So that is my criteria. If you've forgotten your details about SQL, then just go look at our recap videos. We have a video on the 5 tips for SQL, and just a reminder of the order. It's smelly feet will give horrible odors. So remember that sequencing. First is the select, then it's the from, then it's the where, then it's the grouped by, then it's having, and then it's order by. So we've got the select first, then the from, then the where. We don't have a group by or having, so then we go to order by. So make sure that you get the sequencing correct. So let's go test that. And we're going to click on Bloemfontein clients. And there we go. I think that data is very similar to what we've got. Yes, that looks very similar to what we've got. It looks like it's in the right order and it's the right value. So there we go. So we've got that first one spot on. So let's move on to the next one. The next one is 2.1.2. Display just those fields of the collections made in January. So we want to find those fields. I'm assuming that's coming from the other table. And if we remember correctly, what is that table called? It's TBL can collection. That's the field that we're coming from. I think it's the same name, if I remember correctly. Yes, it's the exact same name. So that's the name of the field, TBL can collection. And we want to find out where the can collection date was in January. We don't care what year it is, as long as it's in the first month of that year. So let's try to do this quickly. So we're going to come over here to question 2.1.2. So we want to select just those fields. So select which fields they want? They wanted those fields there. So I'm actually going to copy them and just to save my life and just paste them here. But just remember that your fields, if you're going to list them, must be separated by commas. So make sure that you've got the different field names, that, comma, that. The only times you use ands or ors is in your criteria with your where clause. So select those fields. Which table are we selecting from? The TBL CAN collection. And what is my criteria? Where? Now there are lots of ways of doing this. Where we want the month to be the first month of the year. The collection date is probably a date field. They don't actually mention it. You could always go into the database to see if you can see the properties of the database, but that looks like it is a date field. So which means we can use date functions on the collection date field. So there is a function called month. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to come here and say where the month, open bracket, of the collection date. Make sure that we spelled the field correctly. It's collection date. There we go. One word. Where the month of the collection date equals 1. So that's what I'm looking for. So where the collection date is equal to a 1, that's my criteria. So let's test it. So first month. So when it does this, just double check that you've spelled everything correctly. I think my from clause is incorrect. So make sure that all your fields are spelled correctly. Make sure all your references there, that from should be from like that. So let's run it this time. There we go. That seems to be better. And there we can see the list of records, and there they all are in the first month of each year. I think that's correct. Seems to match with those. Those are the first 5 records. Okay, so there we go. That's the second one. Now the third one, 2.1.3, the code has been provided to enter a letter used in the input box. The letter is saved in a variable called sLetter. Display all the details of the clients whose client ID. So where the client ID starts with the letter that they entered. Now I like to do this without variables first, and then I'll just add the variable later. So let's just do an example of where we're going to find all those that start with the letter J. So let's look at this. So we've got client ID, client, so we want all the fields. So there we go, all the details. So that's a nice select star, and this is the client's table, and we want where the letter of the client ID starts with the letter J. So let's start with that. So let's go to that question. So there we can see the variable. We're going to ignore that for now. Let's just get our SQL working. Select star from TBL clients. Where, now how do I get all those that start with the letter J? So first of all, we're looking at the client ID field. So we are looking at client ID, and we are not looking at where client ID equals to a J, because there is no ID is just J. It's J with stuff after it. So we can't use that. It's a part of the client ID. So that means we're going to use a like, not an equal to sign. And then when we use like, we're going to use our wildcards. Now our wildcards in Delphi are the percentage sign. If you're doing this in Access, you would use a star for all the fields if you wanted. So if you're doing it in Delphi, it could be like J star, which means there's a J and then whatever comes after that. We are using Delphi, so we're going to replace that with a percentage sign. So where the client ID is like a J followed by something afterwards. If we wanted it to end with J, then we would do something like that. So we want whatever the text is and then the J. So that wildcard represents any text or no text. So as long as there's a J in front and then there's text afterwards, that's what we're looking for. So let's have a look at that to see if that works. So we're going to search. This doesn't really matter. We can put in a J there or whatever. It's not going to make a difference. So there we go. It's working for J. If we look at the results, those are the 2 results that we want. So that is correct. So it works for the first letter J. But now we need to modify it so that it works not based on J, but based on what the user gave us in sLetter. So we want to use this variable in the SQL statement. Now you notice variables, we refer to it. It must be like, look at it. It's in black, where the SQL statement is in blue. So we need to make sure that that sLetter is in black. So if I just type in sLetter here, do you see it? Look, it's blue. So it's going to actually look for the client ID where it has the actual text sLetter something. That's not what we want. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to take that J, I'm going to replace it with a quote, and then I'm going to plus plus. So now I've basically ended the string there, and I've made this into a separate string, and in between those 2 strings I'm going to put the sLetter. So I've got this text, which is just text as it is. It's in blue. Then we go out of text mode, we put that quote there. We're now in Delphi mode, where we can write variable names. So we put plus the variable name, and then we put a plus, and then the rest of the SQL statement, which is that part. Now make sure that this is part of the string. So that if this is a string, that's fine, that works fine. If it was a number, we'd have to convert it to a string, but in this case it works out perfectly. So now what's beautiful about this is when I search and I can type in any. So if I type in an A, for example, and click OK, it'll find all those that begin with the letter A. And if I find a letter W, there's all them with W. And let's try the J to see if the J works. There we go. We get the exact same results. So there we go. That is my SQL statement. Let's move on to the next one. 2.1.4. Clients who will receive 8 Rand for each kilogram of cans collected. The company uses the formula 1 kilogram for 76 cans. Okay, so 76 cans is equal to 1 kilogram. They get 8 Rand for each of 78 cans basically. So calculate and display the total amount that each client will receive for the cans they have collected, formatted to currency. Display the client name field and total amount to receive using. Oh, this is quite complicated. We're doing quite a bit of information here because we need the client name. Now, if you'll notice here, the client name is in the client table, but the total amount, which is based on the number of cans that they've collected. And so the number of cans collected is in the collection table. So we're dealing with 2 tables here. And so there's quite a bit of a process involved in this. So let's take it step by step. So first of all, the fields that we want the client name, and each client, if you look at the client ID, collected a certain amount of cans. So like Will 12 collected 412 and they collected 599 and 515. So we want to add, if we were doing Will 12, we would sum all those values together to find the total number of cans collected. So let's first do that. Let's first work out the total number of cans collected by each client. So we want the client's name and then how many cans they collect. Let's first start with that. So if we come over here, we're going to select the client name. That's the key there. We're looking at the client name. And we're not doing that one. We're just doing the total number of cans, which I'm not going to give a name to. Let's just call it basically the sum. That's the sum of the number of cans. We want to sum all the number of cans. That's what we want to do here. So let's go back here. And we want to sum the number of cans. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to put a plus here, so I'm going to put it on a new line so we can at least see the code being developed in one line. So let's just do this. So let's go here and let's go to our next line. So select the client name and sum the number of cans. So now which tables are we getting this data from? A little space there. We're going to say it's from TBL clients and it's from TBL can collection. So it's from both tables. Now, the moment we've got 2 tables, then we're going to have a where clause where we specify the connection between those 2 tables. So we know that there's TBL clients dot. Now the reason why I say TBL clients dot is because we've got a client ID in that table and a client ID in this table. So we need to specify which client ID are we referring to. So we want the client ID from the clients table. Client ID is the same as TBL can collection dot client ID. So we are specifying the connection here. So we select the client name and we are summing the number of cans for each of those clients, and we get it from both tables, and where the client ID is equal to of the client's table is the same as the client ID of the collection. Now, the moment we have a aggregate function like this, we want to sum the number of cans and we've got another field. We actually want to group it by the client name. So group all those client names together and then do the summing of those cans. So the moment you've got an aggregate function and another field, you are always grouping by that other field. So we're going to put a group by here and we're grouping by the client's name. So there's my start of my idea. So just take note that when I break it down into this with little pluses there, make sure that you've got a space at the end, because if you don't have a space, then that from is going to be right against there and it's not going to recognize it. So make sure that you've got spaces at the end of each of your lines. Let's just test this to see what we get. So client earnings. So there's the name of the clients, and this is the total number of cans that each of them have collected. And if we come over here, we can see that it is getting the correct client names. Obviously, we want the total amount, but we're getting somewhere. We've got the total number of cans collected by each person. That's great. Now we're going to take that total number of cans collected and we need to work out the price. So if they collect 76 cans, that's 1 kilogram. For each kilogram, they're going to get 8 Rand. So basically, we're going to divide the total number of cans. If you remember mathematically, we're going to take that 8600, we're going to divide it by the 76 cans. So we're going to get them into groups of 76, and that means we can multiply each of those groups by 8, because they get 8 Rand for each 76 cans. If that makes sense mathematically. So divide it by 76 and then multiply it by 8. So we're going to take that sum and we are going to divide it by 76 and then multiply it by 8. Now all of this, as you can see here, is formatted to a currency. So we're going to put this whole calculation here in a format this whole calculation, and then comma, the second field is what type of format. So we want it as a currency. We can just specify currency. There we go. So that'll format it. And then we want the title at the top to be total space amount. So to do that, we're going to use the as clause and say as total space amount. Now you can't have space like that. So I'm going to put it in square brackets like that. So we're going to group it by the client name, and we're going to then sum the number of cans divided by 76 to get them into groups of 76, and each group will be 8 Rand, format as a currency and display it as total amount. But we're going to get that from both tables, and that's the link between the tables. I think that'll work. It seems quite complicated, but if you look at the mark allocation, it's 8 marks, so it requires a bit of calculating. So let's have a look. I think that's spot on. There we go. So we got the right values for the first 5 records. So there we go. So that's how we broke it down. Break it down bit by bit. Make sure that you get the marks. You know you're using 2 tables. Get all those little tricks done. So just a reminder, when you're using 2 tables, you must specify the link between the 2 tables. And if they've got the same name, then you use the name of the table dot the name of the field. That's fine. And when you are doing aggregate functions, any field that's not in the aggregate function must be grouped by that. Let's move on to the next one. We've only done select steps, so I've got a funny feeling this is going to be an update, a insert, or a delete. Okay, the details of the specifications are captured incorrectly. Modify the detail. Modify means we must change the details of that record, which means we're updating that record to change those 2 particular fields. Okay, so this is an update. So if we come over here, you can see that it's slightly different. That it just executes the SQL. So let's go. So we're going to update, and we specify which table are we updating. Table, we are updating the can collection table. So TBL can collection. And what are we updating? We are setting certain fields. So we are setting 2 fields, if you remember correctly. We are setting the first field is number of cans 250. Let's just double check our table. Number of cans, just like that. And a payment was not made. How do we know if a payment was not made? Well, then paid must obviously be false. So those are the 2 fields. So paid must be false. So we're going to come here to number of cans. Is that like it is in the database? Number of cans, okay? And that must be 250. So if you want to be specific, we could make that a capital I. I don't think it'll make a difference. That must equal 250. Now there are 2 things we are changing. So we separate that by a comma, and we're going to say paid must equal false. Now remember, this is a number, so we can leave it as it is. This is a Boolean, which we can leave it as is. If it was a date, we would put them in hashes. If it was a text, we would put in quotes, but those are the 2 fields that we are updating. But this would change every single one. We want to change just one particular record, so we're going to put a where clause. If you forgot to do the where clause and you run it and it changes all the records, remember there's that restore button that you can get it back to normal. And we only want the record CC03. CC03. So if you look over here, where the collection ID was CC03. So that's the actual record that we're going to change. So where collection ID, just double check that I've spelled it correctly. Collection ID is C003. Collection ID equals C003. Now that's a text field, so we're going to put that in double quotes. How do I know it's a text field? Well, there's a C in front of the number, so it must be text. Let's try that out. Remember, if you do make a mistake, you've got that restore button to reset the database to its original state, and then you can try it again. So we're going to update. Now, database is updated. Let's go to C003. You'll see, 250, and it's false. There we go. And all of them are not changed, just that one. So there we go. So we know that it's working. There we go. I think that's all the SQL for this question. We're now going to move on to 2.2, which is the actual programming, using just general programming tools from Delphi site. So let's go look at this. So yeah, we've got the graphical user interface. There's a bit more controls that you interact with. So let's look at the first one, 2.2.1. Here we are not using SQL. We're just going to use our Delphi methods that we're going to use to interact with the database. Write code to add a new record. We're adding a brand new record to the table to TBL clients. And that means we're going to do an insert. And we're just inserting those values as is. So here is the tab for the question 2.2, and we're going to click on this insert button, and we are working with TBL clients. Now we're going to go straight into insert mode. You'll notice that they don't mention anything about a data module, and if we come here to the top, I think we'll see that they have declared the variables that we can use for the ADO table, so we can use them just as they are. So we're going to go into insert mode. We are then going to insert fields over here, and then we're going to go TBL clients.post. If you remember the sequencing for inserting using code. So how do we change the fields? Well, we're going to go TBL clients, open square bracket, and then the text in here is going to be what the field is. So let's look at the first one. So the first one is client ID, and it's going to be CHA01. So it's going to be client ID, and the text is going to be CHA01. Now that's a text field, so we're going to put that in single quotes to make a text. That's basically what we do. As long as we make sure that this is the correct data type and we are sure that that is spelled correctly according to the database, we can literally just say I'm just going to come here and paste this a couple of times. And then we can come over here and see the next field is client name, which you can see is just one word. So we're going to client name, and that's going to be Charles, and that's also text, so we can just make it Charles. Then we're going to have client surname, which is also one field, and that's going to be that surname. Just changing that to that. Then we want the address to be that, and the address field is just address like it is. Make sure that you spell these field names correctly. And then our last one is city is Cape Town. We can say city and that. So they're all text fields. So that's easy. There's no need to worry about the format. All just in single quotes. If they were numbers, you could leave them as it is. If they were dates, you would put them in hash tags. Or make sure that the variable that you use is a date function. So we insert those fields, then we set what the fields are going to be, and then we post. And that's it. I think that's exactly what we need to do. If we come here to the Delphi code, now you'll notice that there is no CHA field. So let's insert. There we go. It's inserted CHA01. There are the fields that we've just added. Okay, let's do the last bit of this question. Now this will probably be quite a substantial question. They'll be probably working with two tables. So let's go through it. Company wants to calculate the number of cans collected by a specific client in a specific year as a percentage of the total cans collected. Okay, so if we want to find the percentage of the total collection compared to everything, we basically need to sum the client's number of cans, and then we need to sum the total number of cans of the entire company in that specific year. Okay, so there's quite a bit that we're going to be doing. So the user is going to select a client from the DB grid by clicking on a record, and then they're going to select a year from the radio group. And we're using the rich edit to display the information. Okay, so just first thing we do is display the name and the surname of the client that is selected. Now, a lot of people get confused when they see clicking on the DB grid. So now we're thinking, what's the code for the DB grid? Now, you don't need to stress about that. When you click on a field, if I run this code and I click on a particular client, do you see that the black arrow is at that particular record? That means I'm at the place I need to be in the database. I don't need to move anything. I can access TBL client's surname and name from this particular point, and it will collect that particular record. So it moves pointed to where it needs to be in the database. So that's quite easy. We don't need to actually do any code on the DB grid. It just means that when we click on the DB grid, the table for the clients it'll move to the correct record. So let's click on the percentage here, and they've already extracted the year for us into a string. So the first thing I'm going to do is they want me to display the name and the surname of the client. You can see there the name and the surname of the client of the selected person. So that's quite easy. So first thing we do is we're going to go to the rich edit .lines.add, and we are adding the name and the surname of the client. So we're going to go TBL clients square bracket, and then we want the client name. Then obviously we want a bit of a space. So when you're referring to fields, you put it in square brackets and then text of the field name. And then we want TBL clients, and there we want the client surname. And then what I'm going to do is I'm going to add just a blank line at the end of this, because you can see there was a bit of a gap to the next line. So just put a little gap there. So let's try that. You could have used a hash 13. I'm going to do that. So you can see there's a bit of a gap. So how does it know which one to get? Now, as I said, when we click on the DB grid, for example, if I click on that one and we click on percentage, we click on that one. Remember, we must select a year. So I'm just going to select a random year for now. There, it did put the name. And if I move to someone else, let's say I click on that one and click on percentage, it does get the correct name and surname. So that's fine. Now, what are we going to do? Now we've got a particular person. Now I'm actually going to forget about the person. I want to just find the total number that is collected by the company in that particular year. So how do I do that? So when I come here, I'm going to collect how much was collected. Now by everything. So everyone was collected. So we're going to count all the values that were collected in 2020 or 2021, depending on the year that was selected. So we're going to go through this collection table and we are going to check if the year matches the year that we selected. Then we want to add the total number of cans collected. That's what I want to try to do. I'm just going to do that for the total number for the client. I think for the company. So we're going to make a variable, our company count, type integer. Actually, we totaling, so I'm not going to call it count. I'm just going to call it our company cans. That's fine. And what do we always do? we must initialize our company cans must be initialized to 0. Now we're going to go through every single record in the can collection table. So make sure that you work with the right table. So we're going to go TBL can collection dot first, and we're going to loop through this. So we're going to go while not TBL can collection dot end of file. And then you're going to have a begin and end, and inside this begin near the end, we're going to say TBL can collection dot next. So there we go. Those are your 3 steps when you traversing a table. I mean, traversing the can collection table. Now, I don't want to add all the values. I only want to add if the collection date here is the same as the one that they select from here. So, oh, wait, we've got S here. We've got S here as a string. So I need to compare if S here is the same as the year of TBL can collection. Which field has the date? The collection date field. So we're going to say where's the collection date field. Now this is not correct. Collection date. So there we've got collection date, which is a whole date field. And there's no way that's going to equal to whatever the year is, 2022. You can't make a date equal to 2022. Like that collection date is not equal to 2020. It's equal to 22 and a 1 and a 19. So we want just the year. Now this is a date field. So now that we are in Delphi, I think we can use our date functions. Now there is a date function called year, which will fetch just the year of that field. I think it's year of. So if we say year of a date, there we go, year of a date, it will fetch a number that is just that date. Okay, so it will fetch a year that's just that date, but that is going to return it as a number, and this is a string. So I'm actually going to convert this from a string to an int so that the S year is going to be in a number format, and then we're going to fetch the year of the collection date and as a number and compare those 2 numbers. If those 2 numbers are the same, then we have a match. Then we have a record that is in the year that we are looking, and then we're going to say our company cans is going to be whatever's in our company cans plus the value in TBL can collection in the number of cans field. So we found a 2020, then go fetch that value and add it to our sum if we were looking at 2020 as our date. So number of cans. Let's make sure we've spelt everything correctly. Can collection, I think that's all correct. If we get errors, it'll tell me if there are any problems. So we're going to total all of those. And then once we are done that, we want to display the company collected in that year. That's going to be the tab. Now there's a bit of a gap there. So we haven't done the client yet. We've just doing this part here. That's what we're trying to do at the moment. So after the looping is all done, once we've totaled all the cans, only then can we display. So in the rich edit.lines.add, we are going to say the following text. Company collected in the year. Company collected in the year 2022. Not as you have the text in the year. Company collected in 2022. And then we're going to put a plus a #9 because we want that tab. And then we want the actual total that we just did, which was our company cans. Company cans. Okay, so there's a couple things we need to change. First of all, this is an integer and we're displaying this in a rich edit. So it's converted from an int to a string. So that's our first thing. And the second thing is it's not always going to be 2022. It's going to be whatever is in S here. So I'm actually going to say, no, don't take that. We're going to then say plus S here, the string. Then we're going to put the tab and then so on. I think that's right. Is there no, oh, there's a colon. Sorry. Oh, there's a colon after the year. So before we do the hash, we're going to put a plus colon there. So we're going to say this text, then we get the variable, then another piece of text, then a tab, and then the actual number converted to a string. So let's just test that quickly. So on this one, so let's see our example over here. So if we said 2022, it doesn't matter which person we select because we're only doing the company. So if I go 2022 and I say percentage, do we get the same value? Yes, we do. And then if we come to this one, which is 2021, if I say 2021 and say yes, so our total for the company in that particular year is working. So we've got that part working. So now we want to total just that particular client. So now how do I know which client it is? Well, I know the client ID each time and I know that I'm at the right place. So if the client ID of the client table is the same as the client ID of the collection table, then I must total that separately. So let's go do another variable. This is going to be the our client cans. and we are going to initialize that one as well. Client cans is going to equal to 0. Now, it must be in the same year, so we're still going to check the year. So when we find a matching year, we sum the company, but here we're going to do an extra count. We're going to add our client cans is equal to our client cans plus the value, the number of cans as well. This is also going to do this. So it's literally the same line of code. But the problem is we only do this if TBL can collection, the client ID, only do this if the client ID matches, if the client ID from there matches the client ID from this table. So here's where we refer to the client table, where the client's table client ID. Now you're asking, like, how does it know which one? Because remember, we selected it at the top. We displayed that client, so we know that the pointer will be at the right place, which means we can still access that client's table's ID. So if the client ID from the collection table matches the one from the client's table for this here, remember we at the right here, then and only then do we do this particular statement. So it does this all the time, but if by some chance that particular one is also one of our matching clients, then we sum that. So let's go then display that, which is exactly the same almost as this line. So I'm just going to add this at the top, and we want it to be client collected in 2021. So we're going to say client instead of company. We're going to say client here. And then we're going to not display the company cans, but the client cans. Let's test that. So let's try Busi and Corsi. So we're going to come here. We're going to come here to Busi, there, that one. And we want 2022, if I remember correctly. There we go. And let's click percentage. Do we get the same values? 2000. Oh, those values are good. And then this one is Chris Ferreira in 2021. So we want Chris Ferreira, that one in 2021. Click out the percentage and we get the exact same values. Now we've got the right values. Now how do we work out the percentage? Well, percentage, when you're checking out that out of, that's the total number of cans, that's how much that particular client did. It's like your marks. If you get 10 marks out of 50 and the total is 50, it's 10 divided by 50. What you got out of how many possible total there are. So this is what this client has got. This is what is possible as a total. So we take that top value divided by the second value, probably multiplied by 100 so we can get it as a percentage. So that's what we're going to do. So let's go make a real variable because this is dividing now, and R percent type real. And once we've done both calculations at the end here, we're going to say R percent is equal to the client, so it's what you're looking for, the client cans, divided by how many possible total there is, which is the company cans. And we're going to then multiply that by 100, and then we're going to display that. And I'm just going to copy this line again and see if we can modify it quickly. So we want percentage collected by client. So that's our text. So percentage collected by client. We don't have the year anymore. We do have a #9. Then we've got the value, and then we've got a percentage sign at the end. So we're going to then display the R percentage, but this is a real value. So we're going to go float to string, and we actually want to float to string F because we want it to 2 decimal places. Do they mention anything about 2 decimal places? Formatted to 2 decimal places as a percentage. So, and then we put the percentage sign at the end. So we're going to say float to string F. We're going to say FF fixed, comma 8, comma 2. And then at the end there, we're going to put a percentage sign like that. Okay. So I think there was a spelling mistake there. Float, too many T's there. So there we go. Float to string F, that value as a percentage. Okay. Something's wrong with R percent. Let's change that to percent like that. Does that fix? There we go. That fixes that. And that, there we go. So it's what you're looking for. That's the total for the client. How many there are in total. That works out our percentage. So let's try it. Okay, so we're going to click Pussy. We're going to click 2022. Click percentage. 9.23. If we looked here, 9.23. That is spot on. And then we want Chris Ferreira in 2021. That's going to be 16.12. If we come down, 16.10. Okay, I'm just going to try and work this out here. So 5268 divided by 32687 times it by 100. So there we go. I get 16.11 and that rounds up to 16.12. I think my calculation is correct. They had the exact same numbers as well. Our numbers are exactly the same. So I don't know why there's a little bit of error. That's a bit tricky because fortunately you might have gone, wow, what's wrong with my calculation? If you see that type of thing, as I said, just use a calculator, just double check that your values are correct. If I use their values, I get a different answer for that. So I think we got enough to justify that we have gotten this correct. Okay. So there we go. There we've done the question. I think that's all. That's 13 marks and that's the total of 40. That is the end of question 2. We now move on to the OOP question for question 3. Don't forget that the data files are in the link description below, as well as links to the other questions of this question paper. Leave a like, leave a comment. We'd love for you to support the channel by subscribing. And remember, don't do it the long way. Do it the Mr. Long way.